AskReddit by click and snap. Who would you put in the same category of evil as Hitler? Before I went to Warsaw, I read up on the uprising and first heard of Der Lewanger Brigade. A couple accounts of that were so bad they kept me up at night, gang raping and bayoneting all the nurses and pregnant women in a maternity ward, injecting toxins into people's eyes, throwing babies into a pyre in the street. Geez, cruelty so evil and extreme it's scarcely imaginable. Ugh. Der Lewanger. One of the most despicable creatures ever to exist. I can only hope he is being tortured in hell. Maybe not as evil, but definitely worth a mention as Joseph Fritzl. For those who don't know, raped his daughter for the first time when she was 11 years old. Held her locked away in his basement for 24 years till she was 42, molested and raped her throughout the whole time, which resulted in 7 children. One child died after birth, the other 6 were also kept in the basement. I assume they got molested as well, even though it's never mentioned. Now if somebody is a monster, this guy is for sure. There's so much more to the story. He built essentially an entirely underground house off of his basement where he kept his daughter and their children. He put in some small vents, but there was so little oxygen that the people that were searching it had to wear oxygen masks just to move around. The rooms were only like 4 or 5 feet tall and there was next to no lighting. He brought down a TV and built a makeshift kitchen so he could go down, watch TV, make his daughter cook for him, rape her, and then go back upstairs to his wife and the kids he was raising that his daughter gave birth to. I'm not a huge fan of the Time Suck podcast, but he did an incredibly in-depth episode on Fritzl. It's literally decades and decades of just evil. Japanese generals Mukai and Noda aren't getting the hate they deserve. I can't think of anything more atrocious than Nanjing. https:/en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Nanjing_massacre. Oh man, the rape of Nanjing was one of the few lessons I had at college that I still remember 10 years later. The thought of people throwing babies into the air and catching them on bayonets is not something you can just forget. Pol Pot killed 1/4 of the population. Absolute madness that they had a seat at the UN whilst he was in power. Life expectancy in Cambodia was 18 years old under him. It was fucking madness. Edit. Small correction, it was 19. https://data.worldbank.org/indicator/sp.dine.le00.in (?) Reinhard Heydrich, also known as the Butcher of Prague. Thank fuck he was assassinated. He was nicknamed the Young Evil God of Death and Hitler called him the Man with the Iron Heart. Joseph Mengele. Slayer based Angel of Death on his butchery in the name of Hitler. I read a book about Mossad capturing Eichmann in Argentina, and as they were tracking him down, they came across a hotel where very likely, according to all intel they had, Mengele was accommodated just days prior. They decided to not pursue those leads due to limited resources and time, as they did not want to risk their primary target to run away. It's just mind-blowing to me how close they probably were. Heinrich Himmler. I disagree. I think he deserves a higher category of evil than Hitler. Pol Pot. 100% him. My mother, who was 9 at the start, and her entire family were forced out of their home at gunpoint, marched to the countryside where they were separated in 2 different camps and forced to farm without having any background knowledge on farming methods. She was forced to change her name since her birth name was considered too intellectual fancy. She worked from sunrise to sundown, and if she didn't meet her quota she wasn't allowed to eat. They were only fed rice porridge as well, so many people tried to survive by eating bark, insects or whatever they could sneak, and if they were caught they were beaten or killed. Many women and young girls were beaten and raped regularly. My mother has vivid memories of seeing corpses that were mutilated and violated. She also witnessed babies being killed by having their heads smashed against trees. One of her brothers was axed to death for her. Surgeon General Siri Shii, https://en.m.wiki.org/c%c5%8d_Ishii Director of Unit 731 https://en.m.wiki.org/wiki/unit_731 the unit of the Japanese Imperial Army that orchestrated Japan's incomprehensibly cruel human experimentation and biological weapons testing during World War II. They vivisected babies, pregnant women, and just civilians in general alive with no anesthesia and out of sheer sadistic curiosity. They locked people in massive freezers to see how long frostbite took to kill. Placed live kidnapped civilians on around grenades to see how the damage changed with distance. Dropped bubonic plague bombs on villages. Despite some scientific findings, it's the shit they did for no reason other than sadistic pleasure or curiosity that makes them almost worse than the Nazis. From Wikipedia, some of the tests have been described as psychopathically sadistic, with no conceivable military application. For example, one experiment documented the time it took for 3-day-old babies to freeze to death. 731 is one of the darkest things I've ever read about. The only sense of empathy I read about is when a girl wanted to know what she looked like, and a guard broke protocol to put a mirror in front of her while she was in her cell. I just can't believe this happened. It's gut-wrenching. Idi Amin aka Black Hitler was pretty brutal. Edit, misspell. Song, https://open.spotify.com/0TKX-TAQ-QGNQJGN4GATLJX?2-VVMQQQ. His self-imposed title is absolutely hysterical. His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Al-Haji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, VC, DSO, MC, CBE, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. King Leopold II of Belgium. He needs to be more well known. I read a book in college on Belgium's evils in the Congo called King Leopold's Ghost, and it's still one of the best books I've ever read. Idi Amin is up there. Every single person involved in Unit 731. Edit, only read about them if you've got a strong stomach or are okay with losing faith in humanity. I first heard of this a couple years ago and went on a deep dive on the subject. I was horrified as hell when I read up on it. Shit was bananas. Goebbels. I think that's one of the scary things about the Nazis. It would feel more comfortable to say that it was just because of Hitler, but nope, the sheer number of sadistic people who were part of the party really makes you think. Goebbels was interesting because honestly he seemed to care less about political ideology, he just wanted control. I'd argue some remorseless killers on a much smaller scale still qualify. The capacity for evil and cruelty is separate from the capability to influence such on a grand scale. In a way, killers like Albert Fish qualify even more than those who kill as a means to an end, rarely having much emotional and personal involvement with the literal taking of life. Leopold II. Is this the asshole that would dismember and murder children who didn't meet quotas on his fields? Ante Pavelic, Croatian MF and Nazi collaborator, pretty sick fella. It's important to remember that you can be evil without being powerful. We remember Hitler because he was both, but there are tons of people out there who are just as demented as he was that don't have the power to execute their wills on such a large scale. Honestly, I think there are many people who are more evil than Hitler was. I know that you can't really put a measure on just how bad literally ordering the murder of millions of people is, and this will sound awful. But, given the opportunity, there are people who would do worse, By worse I mean they'd torture more, they'd kill more, and they'd be happy about it. Hitler is the epitome of evil because he had the chance to live out his evil ideas. He had people around him who also believed in the same things and were equally if not more evil. I get what you're saying. He wasn't necessarily more evil than bad guy X, just more successful. Albert Fish. I heard he was a real jerk. Idi Amin has to be up there. MF is responsible for the deaths of between 300k 500k people. Deleted. Genghis Khan was the original Hitler with way more success. Yeah, can't believe this is so far down. Didn't he kill so many people that the earth cooled? Didn't he rape so many women that a percentage of everyone alive now is his descendant? Deleted. I can't think of a woman less deserving of a second chance in life than that sick bitch. Genghis Khan. I feel people aren't more upset about him being once enough time has passed people stop view historical people as people. I feel like I heard something once where they said that throughout history there were a lot of rulers who were probably just as bad or worse than Hitler, but we don't think of them in the same way for a few reasons. 1. Enough time has passed that people personally affected by them have been dead for hundreds or thousands of years. 2. History is written by the victors, and a lot of their bad shit is probably glossed over. 3. Due to not having the same level of technology, they were unable to match the efficiency and therefore the numbers of the Nazis. Jimmy Savile. Beloved UK talk show host, spent his whole life raising money for charity and a large portion of his career granting wishes for children. So far sounds like a nice guy, right? After his death, an investigation is launched into allegations of child abuse against him, police concluding that he was a prolific child molester. Savile is estimated to have sexually abused up to 500 people in his life, spanning from 1955 to 2009. The charity work? All a clever method of luring vulnerable people for Savile. Many of his victims were those within the charities, care homes and hospitals he worked for. Some even backstage on the shows he presented. My mum actually met him when she worked for a media outlet. When they were organizing a charity appearance from him, he basically wouldn't attend without exorbitant fees and all sorts of conditions being met. She said he was, and I quote, a slimy bastard and that his charitable persona was all for show. She didn't know how right she was. The Japanese conquest of the mainland around and before WWII. Holy shit, finally someone else says it. I nearly threw up the first time I read about Japan's war crimes. I'm surprised I haven't seen Benito Mussolini on here yet. He was awful. He killed millions and subjected children to drinking canola oil so they would have diarrhea and vomit to death. Castor oil, not canola oil. He used it as a means of torture in general, not as a means of killing children like you make it sound. People did die from it though. Hideki Tojo, Pol Pot.